Okay, so Helen Davies from Barnet Unison and Unison NEC, speaking in personal capacity.
Clearly personal capacity, because Unison is ever such a long way from breaking any links with the Labour Party. It was about the unity in fighting against cuts, looking for other allies, and one bit of it was, and we should look to open up a dialogue with those councillors who are voting against the cuts, because there have been some councillors who voted against cuts, not many, about 20, so let's not get overly excited, but nonetheless it was clear that conference floor said, well, they're voting for our policies, therefore we should be feeling quite friendly to these people, should we not? And nobody on conference floor really got the subtlety of the leadership saying, well, it's not quite that easy, it's really quite tricky, and it was absolutely, any opposition to that motion was completely binned. So Unison has got a policy of, has now adopted a policy of opening up dialogue with councillors who refuse to implement cuts, and I think that's something to be welcomed, and I think it's something as well that indicates a trend which Steve Headley's talked about is present in unions. People don't understand it. If we're paying money, why aren't we getting something back? You know, when the furore over Falkirk happened, and Cameron saying, Unite is putting in money and trying to get council, and I bet they want to get something out of it. Oh yeah, because British Petroleum, Shell, Barclays, they never want anything for their money, do they? Of course not. Of course not. And and I think that we have to understand, and the role for me of an organisation like TUSC. I think there's got to be a view about, you know, where our strengths lie, where our resources are, and clearly there's a good group here. It's not the same everywhere, but where there are groups and socialists coming together, I do think, and particularly when you've got Labour councillors who are just voting through one cut after another, I do think it is absolutely incumbent to pose the question to the electorate, is this really the only thing we vote for? I mean, we complain about a future king is born, hallelujah, all our problems are solved. But actually, isn't there something similar when we have just Labour get in and then everything will be all right? And we know it won't. It won't, because it wasn't last time. And who would have thought, I mean, I'm maybe a little overly optimistic sometimes, but even in my complete cynicism about Labour's Mini Bland, I think is the correct name of him. Even Mini Bland couldn't bring himself. The fact he could not bring himself to oppose the comprehensive spending review of the Tories, which was everybody knew was going to be vicious attack on our class. Can't bring himself to oppose it, and the bedroom tax, which has to be a tax which is hammering Labour councils. Actually, I heard in Middlesbrough they've got a massive surplus of 2 and 3 bedroom properties that they can't fill because everybody's saying, oh, I want to move out, I can't afford it, I need to move out. If you can't do something even which recognises problems within your own organisation, what the hell is going on in people's heads? And I think that there's a serious problem we face in our movement, which is a chronic lack of confidence. Can we fight? Can we win? Or if we fight, will we win? Is it worth it? I've just been facing some of that recently. We're over the border in Barnet, and we don't even have the luxury of this sort of a conversation about about the opposition, Labour's an opposition, because we've got absolutely vicious Tories in the council. Tories who think that the Welfare Reform Act of 1834, which introduced the workhouses, is a step forward, was a progressive step forward. And Tories who think that they can't wait for the law to be got rid of, which means they have to provide a service to those people, and those people are people with disabilities. And those are things that they've said in public. So they don't shy away from these things. And it's a Tory party which is looking to mass privatise the whole council, and is well down that track, and also wishes to withdraw completely the facility time for all the council unions. So that is, it's implementing the Eric Pickles agenda, and so we are very focused on, if they are still in on the next election, and they have quite a big majority actually, then we're going to really struggle in that context. And for us, when we're going around talking to workers, the real thing that would defeat that programme of mass privatisation, I'm quite clear about, it's not whether we vote in Labour, because Labour is not going to necessarily reverse those cuts. In fact, they had done some of the privatisation themselves. What would really have done it was if we could have persuaded workers to have fought back on a mass scale, and if we'd have were able to mobilise the residents in that borough on a mass scale. Now, we have done a reasonable job. We did have strike action, some of the first ever strike action against privatisation over the issue of the changing of the employer. And the public campaign we've had on the streets, we've had our demonstrations which for us have been quite well attended, and we've had, and at the moment there is a court case going through court which has been put up by the residents challenging the legality of the privatisation agenda, and they've gotten through to the appeal stage, so the whole thing is on hold as we speak. In the meantime, on one of the areas which they have privatised, we predicted that care workers in all of the day service settings for adults with learning disabilities, we said once you go out into an arm's length company, that is a mechanism to trash your terms and conditions. And a year later, that company, which is wholly owned by the council, is saying we want to cut terms and conditions, and it's looking like around 1/3 of people's terms and conditions will be cut by a third. So this is workers who are not that well paid who are going to see that sort of a cut. And in that backdrop of that viciousness, it hasn't been possible for us to have that breakthrough on the industrial front, unfortunately. And we can argue about bits and pieces of where we could have done this better, that better, timing, a London region of Unison which would have been more enthusiastic wouldn't have gone amiss as well. But nonetheless, we haven't had that big breakthrough. And one of the critical factors for me and for all workers is, yeah, but if we fight, is it going to be worth it? Are we going to win? And that's where I think the battleground around electoral issues becomes necessary as well. It's important we fight on that front, because if we don't, we leave the field completely open to despair. And that is where UKIP is marching through. You've got, same as us, I've read it today on BBC News, apart from the King, if you go down into all the local issues. Do you know about the van that's going to be circling around? You've heard about it. Has anybody not heard about it? Right. A van, the Home Office is putting around a van to tour Brent, Barnet, Ealing, Harrow, with a big billboard saying, if you're foreign and you shouldn't be here, contact us and we'll help you leave. Or worse to that effect. You know, I mean, it's really so a government, maybe not for the first time, but the idea that public money is being spent in that way to target local populations and to say it's okay to target foreigners, who are they? You know, it's quite extraordinary, and I think that it is commendable that one of the, I can't remember the name of the guy, but a Brent Labour councillor has come out quite vocally condemning that and asking for it not to go through Brent, basically. So I think that's welcome. I don't think we'll have the same response from Barnet councillors on that issue. It'll be up to the community to provide that response. So I think in this period that we're in, I mean, let's face it, in 2011, if the pensions dispute hadn't have been stymied in the way it was, I think we would be in a different situation now. But we are here, we're here, this is what we're up against, and I think it's incumbent on all of us to get stuck into campaigns which do anything to shift that weight of opinion that says you can't fight, you can't win. Anything that shifts that weight, that says we have to put up with this crap that we live in. And that, is, to me, seems to be the central thing that all of us, socialists, trade unions, have to be involved in. And I think that, you know, I wish this campaign luck, you know, in challenging the view that there is an alternative and putting that message across, because it is sorely needed. However well or badly we do, the point is if we don't do it, we've failed in our duty. Okay.